right, welcome to our Land Use Committee meeting of April 2nd, 2018. I'm Katie Tang, chair of this committee, and to my right is Supervisor Jane Kim. We will see if Supervisor Safai will show up today. Our clerk is not Erica Major, but Victor Young here. And from SFGov TV, we'd like to thank Nona Melkonian, Jesse Larson. Mr. Clerk, do we have any announcements?
Yes, please make sure to silence all cell phones and electronic devices. Completed speaker cards and copies of any documents to be included as part of the file should be submitted to the clerk. Items acted upon today will appear on the April 10th Board of Supervisors agenda unless otherwise stated.
Thank you. And can we please call items 1 and 2 together, please?
Yes. Item number 1 is the ordinance accepting the irrevocable offer of public infrastructure acquisition facility and real property associated with 7th Street and Mission Bay Drive Phase 1 and Phase 2 infrastructure improvements, including portions of the 7th Street Berry Street corridor and Mission Bay Drive in Mission Bay South, declaring city property and additional property as shown on official Public Works map as open public right-of-way. Item number 2 is an ordinance accepting the irrevocable offer of public infrastructure acquisition facility associated with the Mission Bay South Mariposa Street intersection infrastructure improvement adjacent to Highway Interstate 280.
Thank you. And I will turn it over to the sponsor, Supervisor Kim.
Thank you, Chair Tang. I have no opening comments. I'm just very excited that we are continuing to accept more streets that we can open up for our residents and workers in the Mission Bay area.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. Barbara Moy, Department of Public Works, San Francisco Public Works Infrastructure Task Force. And as the clerk so kindly noted, we have 2 pieces of public infrastructure which we're asking that the city accept. The first is, as noted, was 7th Street and Mission Bay Drive. And if I could have the overhead projector, that would be helpful. Thank you. Oops. 7th and Mission Bay Drive is indicated here in green. And just for reference, the second item is Mariposa, which is a single block segment noted in purple below. So the 7th Street and Mission Bay Drive intersection public improvement project is located in Mission Bay South redevelopment area and is part of the infrastructure plan for Mission Bay South. The project consists of constructing infrastructure improvements in portions of 7th Street, Mission Bay Drive, and Berry Street connector. The public improvements were constructed in accordance with approved plans and specifications, which included at-grade railroad crossing. The design, which was coordinated with the Peninsula Corridor Joint Powers Board, also known as Caltrain, and the California Public Utilities Commission. The Board of Supervisors previously approved the redevelopment plan, owner participation agreement, and Mission Bay South infrastructure plan, which closed an at-grade railroad crossing at Berry Street and provided the new location at Mission Bay Drive as a second entry to Mission Bay project from 7th Street. The second project that was indicated is the Mariposa Street project. This project consists of constructing public infrastructure improvements along Mariposa Street between I-280 and on and off ramps. The project included work on the Caltrans on and off ramp to coordinate with Mission Bay development projects. However, the work on Caltrans right-of-way is not being accepted by the city. The public improvements were constructed in accordance with approved plans and specifications. In the cases of both projects that I previously mentioned, the Director of Public Works, in consultation with affected city agencies such as PUC, Fire Department, MTA, issued a notice determining that the projects were completed and ready for their intended use. The Planning Department in both cases determined that the construction and acceptance of public improvements are consistent with the city's general plan, the 8 priority policies of the Planning Code Section 101.1, and that this does not trigger any further CEQA environmental review. The Office of Community Infrastructure and Investment has determined that the construction acceptance of the public improvements for both projects are consistent with the Mission Bay South redevelopment plan and plan documents. We thereby are asking that the Land Use and Transportation Committee approve these items and recommend acceptance by the Board of Supervisors. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Anyone else, or that's it? Okay, so we will open up items 1 and 2 to public comment. Any members of the public who wish to speak, please come on up. Okay, seeing none, then public comment is closed. Can we get a motion on items 1 and 2?
So I'd like to make a motion to move forward item 1 and 2 for with positive recommendation to the full board.
All right, and we will do that without objection. Thank you. Item 3, please.
Item number 3 is a resolution accepting a public sidewalk easement on Shipley Street adjacent to the development project at 923 Folsom Street and adopting the Public Works order concerning the easement.
All right, I will once again turn it over to Supervisor Kim.
Thank you, and Moses Corrett from my office is here to present on item number 3.
Good morning, Supervisors. This resolution accepting a public sidewalk easement on Shipley Street adjacent to the development project at 923 Folsom Street and adopting the Public Works order concerning the easement. The project began as a large project authorization for 923 Folsom Street, which was adopted by the Planning Commission on July 24th, 2014. Public Works has determined that the public sidewalk easement is necessary to create a wider sidewalk and to accommodate the safe and accessible passage for members of the public on Shipley Street, where the sidewalk is adjacent to 923 Folsom. The easement is because Shipley Street is too narrow to be ADA compliant. The Public Works Director has recommended that in the public interest, convenience, and necessity, that the city obtain a non-exclusive easement for pedestrian passage on, over, under, and within that portion of Shipley Street fronting the development project at 923 Folsom. On September 22nd, 2017, 923 Folsom Acquisition, LLC, made an irrevocable offer to the public sidewalk easement over its property facing Shipley Street for pedestrian passage. On October 26th, 2017, Public Works Director and the City Engineer certified that all work was completed and inspected and that the sidewalk has been constructed in accordance with the plans and specifications and all city codes, regulations, and standards, and that such improvements are ready for their intended use. The Public Works Director has also recommended that the Board of Supervisors accept this offer from 923 Folsom Acquisition, LLC, and that for the public sidewalk easement. We have project sponsor Julian Marsh here for additional comment.
All right, so without anything else, then we will go to public comment on item 3. Any members of the public who wish to speak? No? Okay. Public comment is closed.
Great.
Supervisor Kim.
So just want to thank the project sponsor, Julian Marsh. At this time, I'd like to forward item number 3 with positive recommendation to the full board.
All right, and we will do that again without objection. Item 4, please.
Item number 4 is the ordinance amending the Business and Tax Regulation Code to suspend temporarily the application of the business registration and fee requirements for transportation network companies, drivers, and taxi drivers.
All right, thank you very much. And I think we have Amanda Confried here from our Treasurer and Tax Collector's Office.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. The state passed Senate Bill 182 last year, which prohibits a treasurer from requiring TNC drivers to register as a business if they live outside of San Francisco. This is in stark contrast to our treatment of all other independent contractors who do business in San Francisco, regardless of where they live. The passage of SB 182 effectively cut off more than $1.2 million in annual revenue and undermined our business licensing authority. The city was on record opposing this legislation, and we are now challenging the validity of the law in court. In the interest of fairness, as the lawsuit proceeds, we wanted to avoid a situation where a small group of businesses, TNC drivers who live in San Francisco and taxi drivers, continue to register and pay, even as we assert in court that this law is unenforceable and violates our charter city authority. This ordinance is crafted as a temporary suspension of the business registration requirements intended to align with the time frame of the litigation. Thanks.
Thank you for that. So I wanted to know what the anticipated impact on our revenues would be as a result of this. I'm not questioning the impetus behind this. I actually think it's really great that you brought this forward to us, but I just wanted to know what we're expecting in terms of the impact on revenues.
We estimated less than $200,000. In reality, most TNC drivers, even if they live in San Francisco, given the confusing way that the law was drafted, probably wouldn't come forward and register, which is part of the reason why we oppose the legislation in the first place. So it's really just covering taxi drivers who would still be left in that category.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. That sounds very minimal then. Okay, colleagues, do we have any other further questions or comments about this one?
No questions,
Mr. Kim?
but I just want to completely agree with the direction. It's really unfortunate that the state passed a bill preventing localities from requiring workers that do business in San Francisco from applying for and paying for a business permit. But I completely agree, just out of fairness for the drivers that we can require, I think that this makes sense. And it's just unfortunate that this is even before us. But thank you for your work with Supervisor Peskin and, of course, our Treasurer Cisneros.
Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Safai?
Thank you, Ms. Freed. So how long do you anticipate this suspension to take?
It's drafted, in its current form, it's for 2 years. It would sunset automatically after 2 years without any action from the board.
So that would be $200,000 annually, approximately?
Less than $200,000 annually, yes, for those 2 years.
And what's the anticipation of the time on the lawsuit?
I would defer to the city attorney on that, but they crafted it to align.
Deputy City Attorney?
Sorry about that. Deputy City Attorney Andrew Shen, through the chair, Supervisor Safi. I don't know that information off the top of my head, but I can certainly have the person handling the litigation in my office reach out to your office and provide an update on that front.
Yeah, I mean, that would be good. I guess what I'm thinking is, so how, and I agree with what Supervisor Kim said, and as well as Chair Tang, this is the right thing to do to level the situation. But I just always kind of think of it from the fiscal perspective. And so how do you, if it's around 200,000 or a little bit less for over 2 years, how do you all plan to backfill that?
Supervisor,
That's a loss of revenue for your office, correct?
No, Supervisor, it goes into the general fund.
Right.
So
That's a loss to the general fund. Okay. I just wanted to be clear on that.
Okay. All right.
But otherwise, I agree. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all. Okay, so at this time, we'll open up item 4 to public comment. If there are no other further questions, any members of the public, please comment up item 4.
Thank you, Supervisors. Mark Gruberg, San Francisco Taxi Workers Alliance, and I want to thank Supervisor Peskin for bringing this forward. SB 182 was really just piling it on to a whole bunch of other laws and rules that treat cab drivers unfairly vis-a-vis transportation network company drivers, and actually treats everybody who pays a business license fee in San Francisco unfairly, as opposed to TNC drivers, because they are the only ones who are exempted under state law, to my knowledge. So this will inject a little bit more fairness into it, and owing to the fact that cab drivers would always be exempted, at least during the period that this lawsuit goes forward, and we hope and pray for its success. As you are keenly aware, I'm sure cab drivers have been suffering mightily over the past few years, owing to the discrepancies in regulation between the two forms of service, which are really identical, or so close to it that you can't make that distinction. And I just urge you to pass this. It will be of some help to cab drivers, and if you see your way clear to make this a permanent exemption for cab drivers, that would also be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please. Any other members of the public on item 4? Seeing none, public comment is closed. All right, colleagues, a motion on item 4.
Make a motion to send this item to the full board with positive recommendation.
All right, we will do that without objection. Okay, Mr. Clerk, are there any other items before us today?
That completes the agenda for today.
All right, thank you. We are adjourned.